Hi, this is Sherry Dinkins, your ICC 110 College Success Instructor. Here are the instructions for one student's story, and we'll also take a quick look at the writer who did this several semesters ago and why that student did so well. So first it says to read the student sample. So as you're glancing at this sample, you're going to notice a couple of things. Number one, it's typed. It is written in either Google Docs or Microsoft Word and submitted to the assignment feature. There is no title. There is some information about this person's background, and then they go on to taking this class and a specific chapter that helped them. This is really, really important. So with a one student story, we don't want a general discussion of everything you've learned in ICC 110. We want to focus on one specific chapter that helped you, and then we want to see how that helped you. So when she talks about self-management and, not being able to keep track of things, we'll notice that her history also describes that she was good at keeping track, and then she started to lose track, and she couldn't, she had a planner and didn't use it. And she also talks about specifically how this kind of impacted her. So specifics are really important in this assignment. So let's go back to the instructions. So you'll want to choose just one chapter of your textbook. In this case, the student chose chapter 4. You can choose any chapter. We've studied chapters 1 through 6. If you feel as though chapters 7 or 8 would also, maybe one of those would be better for you, feel free to go through those chapters. So any chapter from chapter 1 through 8 would be appropriate for this assignment. So what this student did was she went ahead and read through the whole chapter. She most likely took notes about what kind of impacted her. Oh, I'm a procrastinator. I don't do purposeful actions. I realize most of my time is spent wasted or whatever. So she went through this chapter to sort of see, hey, this chapter addresses my problem. And when it talks about a self-management system, it talks about what is the solution. So that's really, really important. If we look back at her assignment, she talks about how she had difficulty with that. And then when she describes how things changed when she took ICC 110, that also includes specifics. So as you're glancing at the instructions, it says, hey, use 1/3 to be kind of your history, but it does need to be your history as far as what that chapter is describing. So this student may have also had other issues, not just with time management, but with other things, motivation, or maybe any other chapter might have also applied to her. But when she did her first third of her document, she made sure she really just focused on those things that were also then mentioned in that chapter. So it's a very focused story. Then it says, to use 1/3 of the story to describe what you learned in the chapter. So here the student does that. She specifically says, hey, here's some of the things that I used, but you notice she's not actually, other than the phrase self-management system, she's not copying and pasting information from the textbook. So as far as using information from the textbook, it's okay to use several words or several phrases and move them into your document without having to cite it, because you learned from that area and we want to show that you've learned from it. What we don't want to do is then take other parts of it and just copy and paste it and dump it into your one student story, because what happens then is that would be called plagiarism. So please be very careful that you can use words or phrases from the textbook, but anything else we want to be careful that we're not just taking information from the textbook and just dumping it in, because that would be considered plagiarism. So, and you'll notice that she doesn't, when she talks about it, she doesn't call it leak proof. She actually just leaves that front part off and says it's a self-management system. So she's changing the wording a little bit to get around that idea of, hey, I'm just going to copy and paste a bunch of stuff from the chapter and then I'm going to get a high grade. So that's not the idea here. The idea is to learn from the chapter, move to your own story, and then using a couple of words and phrases, describe what you learned from that whole chapter. So there's a lot of things that she talks about that she did. First of all, she says, here's some things I thought, and these are her thoughts in quote marks, which is totally appropriate. She did describe the next actions list, so notice that's only 2 words. It's going great. Then she gives some specific And this is just about her life, laundry, dishes, vacuuming the floors. That's actually really good detail to include. Then she talks about, hey, they talked about her planner, she got a planner book. So she's talking about what she did from that chapter that is helping her today. So when we talk about do 1/3 to describe the ideas, the lessons, the exercises, and other items in the chapter, she's done that. And then she talks about how is she implementing them. And then she wants to describe what impact that has on her life. So, you know, and that's kind of this last part here where she talks about how things are different now. So as you're glancing at her essay or her document, it's a really good example of what a story should be. It's anywhere between 4 and 9 paragraphs. It does have a kind of a what things were like before I took this class, what I noticed in the chapter, what I applied to my own life, and what my life is like now. So it's a really good example of that. There is a minimum 700 words for the rough and final drafts. There's a maximum of 1,100 words. So as you're kind of working through, there's more hints about how to write coherently. That is a part of the assignment, although this is not an English class. I do always recommend that students go and see a tutor, either online or in person, to really walk through their one student's story to see, hey, is it really aligned with the chapter? Perhaps you were more interested in chapter 2, personal responsibility. So the tutor can actually help you go through and describe, okay, how do you feel like you were doing a victim mindset? Let's get more detailed there. How are you now more into the creator mindset? So that tutor can really help you with your writing as you get there. So I just want to make sure that I mention that. I do mention a little bit more about what constitutes plagiarism. It's pretty rare that I see that. If it is in a rough draft, I will highlight it in red and ask the student to remove that information. It's also really smart to see a tutor or to see me during office hours to recheck to make sure nothing is accidentally plagiarized. Also want to mention that I have a regular policy in my academic misconduct section of the syllabus, which talks about the use of artificial intelligence, and it's also reworded here a little bit differently. So basically, going into ChatGPT or any other online software and saying, hey, I need to write about a chapter in OnCourse. Can you write me a little thing about it? So that is generating ideas or having somebody else write your stuff. Now I realize it's a computer writing it, but at ICC that would actually constitute what we call academic misconduct. Nobody wants that to happen because that's actually a 0 and a write-up. So you can read more about this in the syllabus if you feel like you want to know more about it. I do have videos that you can watch on how to format your document. If you haven't written an essay that, you know, or any sort of document that looks like this, that's okay. The only difference for ours is it has no title. It just gets right into the story. So that's the only difference between that and any other MLA document. I do have several formats that I accept. If you have something other than Microsoft Word or Google Docs, you can meet with a tutor and they can show you how to export your document to be one of these formats. As you're glancing down, I also include how will your story actually earn points when it becomes a final draft. And that's what this section is about. It just kind of tells you what's expected. So it's really similar to what's above. As a rough draft, they'll have notes on the side. With a final draft, there will be points on each side. So I wanted to make sure I show you the grading rubric. I never want that to be sort of a surprise for you. So I'm very excited about students getting into the textbook, choosing a chapter, and then writing how that has impacted their life and what changes they're making now and how that's resulted. I'd really be happy to help you during my office hours, and then we also have tutors available at ICC, and any of those links will bring you there, and it's pretty easy to make an appointment there. If you haven't done this before, you can actually walk into our tutoring center and ask them to do it for you. That's fine too. But there's a register for an account button. You make a little account, you create your own password, and boom. Most people, once they get onto that, will actually click onto the online only appointments, and you can have up to 1 appointment per day. So very useful. This is a free service. Some of our online tutors are actually teachers here at ICC that are very experienced with my assignments. So please make use of that. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time on this video.